Welcome back to the deep dive. Today is Wednesday, January 21, 2026.
And it feels like we've already lived through about 3 seasons worth of drama.
I was just about to say that. I want you to just take a second and picture a normal Premier League season in your head.
Okay, yeah, got it. The usual rhythms.
Exactly. The usual suspects fighting it out at the top, maybe one or two managers under a bit of pressure. A general sense of order to the universe.
Right. Things make sense, more or less.
Now, I want you to take that mental picture, set it on fire, and throw it out the window.
Because that is just not what we're looking at right now.
Not even close. It really isn't. We are officially past the halfway point of the 2025-26 season, game week 20, wrapped up back on January 4th.
And this is usually the stabilization period, isn't it? This is when the table settles, you know who's in the title fight, who's probably going down.
And the fog clears. But this year, the script hasn't just been rewritten, it feels like it's been shredded.
It's pure chaos. And I think that's our mission for this deep dive, really, to try and find some signal in all this noise.
Yes. We need to unpack why this particular season feels so incredibly unstable. There has to be a reason for it all.
Oh, there's a lot to get through.
Yeah.
The managerial carnage, for one. I mean, we've already had 6 departures. 6? That's historically high for January.
It's a bloodbath. And we absolutely have to do a forensic analysis of what on earth is going on at Manchester United. The Ruben Amorim sacking is, well, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
And later on, something I'm really interested in, we're going to look at the alternative reality table. The one Squawka put together, showing what the league would look like without VAR errors.
Oh, that's going to make some people very happy and some people very, very angry.
It always does.
Plus, we can't ignore some of the just bizarre subplots. Ange Postecoglou's tenure at Nottingham Forest. I still have to check the dates to make sure I didn't just dream that.
39 days. It's a number that's going to live in Premier League infamy, I think.
It's a pub quiz question for the next 20 years. And then there's the bomb squad exodus from Old Trafford. Are those players actually succeeding elsewhere, or is it more complicated?
It's always more complicated.
But let's start at the top of the table, because amidst all this burning wreckage, there is one team that seems to be operating in a completely different, much calmer reality.
You have to be talking about Arsenal.
I am. They are the only ones who seem to have read the script, stuck to it, and are just executing.
They really are the control group in this experiment of chaos, aren't they? They're sitting top with 48 points after 20 games.
The numbers are just so solid. 15 wins, 3 draws, only 2 losses, a goal difference of plus 26. While everyone else is having an identity crisis, Mikel Arteta's side just looks like a well-oiled machine.
It really feels like while the rest of the league is screaming into a pillow, Arsenal is just quietly getting the job done, week in, week out.
And it's the way they're doing it. If
Yeah.
you look at the underlying metrics, it's not always champagne football, as you'd say.
No, not at all. They aren't winning 5-0 every weekend, although they did have that 5-0 drubbing of Leeds back in August, which was, a real statement of intent early on.
But look at the texture of their more recent wins. It's a 1-0 win over Brentford. It's grinding out a 2-1 against a very, very good Aston Villa side.
That's the stuff that wins you titles, though. That's the championship mentality.
It screams title-winning form to me. It's that ability to win ugly. It's not about the highlight reel every week. It's about those cold, rainy Tuesday nights where you're tired, you're not at your best, but you find a way to get 3 points.
They have that resilience now, which maybe they lacked a couple of years ago.
But they did have that one big explosion of brilliance, and it came in the biggest game. The North London Derby, November 23rd, Arsenal 4, Tottenham 1.
That was a statement piece.
No.
That was the moment they put their foot down and said, we are the best team in this city and maybe the best team in this country.
And the main man that day, interestingly, wasn't one of the usual suspects. It wasn't Saka or Odegaard.
No, it was Eberechi Eze, a hat-trick in a North London derby.
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of performance that shifts the entire psychological weight of a season.
Absolutely. It creates this narrative of inevitability around you. When you have a player like Eze stepping up like that, in that game, it sends a message to everyone else in the league.
It says, we have goals from everywhere. You can't just stop 1 or 2 of our players.
It's fascinating you use that word inevitability because for the last, 5 or 6 years, that word has belonged to one club.
Manchester City.
And looking at the table now, they're second on 42 points, 6 points back. Haaland is still doing Haaland things. He has 19 goals, so the robot, as people call him, is functioning as per the factory settings.
Goals are still there, for sure. But the team, Something's different. They've lost 4 games already.
4 losses by January. For a Pep Guardiola team, that's basically a full-blown crisis.
It is. Usually they don't hit 4 losses until, what, April, if they hit it at all in a season. And it's the nature of these losses that's so alarming for them.
This isn't City dominating possession for 90 minutes and then getting hit by one lucky counterattack.
No, they are losing control of games. Do you remember September 14th?
How could anyone forget? Manchester United 3, Manchester City 0, at the Etihad.
At home. A complete dismantling. That result sent shockwaves through the league because it showed that this City team could be bullied, could be tactically outthought on their own patch.
And then, just to prove it wasn't some sort of chaotic fluke, you fast forward to December 2nd.
Oh, that Fulham game.
Fulham 4, Manchester City 5.
That game felt like a fever dream. A 9-goal thriller where the champions, the great defensive machine, conceded 4 goals to Fulham.
I remember watching it, and it was ridiculously entertaining, sure, but it just did not look like a Pep Guardiola team. It was basketball.
That scoreline tells you everything you need to know. They are still scoring goals. 44 is the highest in the league.
Yeah.
But that defensive solidity, that lockdown control we associate with them, it's just evaporated.
The cloak of invincibility has definitely slipped. Teams are going to the Etihad now, and they're not scared. They're thinking, we can score 2, maybe 3 against these guys.
They're engaging in shootouts. And while you might win a 5-4 against Fulham, that is not a sustainable model for winning the Premier League title over 38 games. It's just not.
And sitting right there with them, which is maybe the biggest surprise of the season so far, on 42 points, is Aston Villa.
Unai Emery is just, he's a magician. What he is doing is miraculous.
To be level on points with Manchester City halfway through the season is an incredible achievement.
It's a testament to his tactical rigidity, and I mean that in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Every single player knows their job, knows where to be on the pitch within a few inches. He has them flying.
Villa isn't just a plucky underdog anymore, are they? They are a legitimate top 4, maybe even title-challenging machine under Emery.
They absolutely are.
Now, we have to talk about the team that should be up there challenging Arsenal.
You got
defending champions.
Liverpool, yeah. It's been a rough ride for the Reds this year.
Arne Slot comes in, wins the league in his debut season 2024-25. It was an incredible story, a seamless transition from Klopp.
It really was. But the difficult second album syndrome is hitting them, and it's hitting them hard.
They're all the way down in 4th on 34 points. That's a 14-point gap to Arsenal already. 14 points. That's massive.
It's a canyon at this stage of the season. And while you can critique tactics or talk about a title hangover, there is a very tangible, very medical reason for this drop-off.
We have to talk about that game on December 20th against Tottenham.
The Alexander Isak injury.
I was reading the report from Liverpool FC News, and it just makes you wince. He scores the opening goal, and in the act of scoring, he gets crunched.
A fibula fracture. It's just a devastating injury for any player, but especially for him. He's undergone surgery, and the club is saying there's absolutely no time frame for his return.
And you have to understand what Isak brings to that Arne Slot system. He's not just a goal poacher standing in the box.
Not at all. He's the link-up man. He drifts into wide channels. He's the one who initiates the press from the front. When you remove the focal point of a high-pressing system like that,
The whole structure just collapses backward, doesn't it?
it does. Everything else has to adjust. And it's clear they haven't figured out how to do that yet.
So they're trying to defend a title with their main offensive weapon in a cast on the sidelines. It really feels like their race is run already.
Look, unless Arsenal has a complete and utter collapse, closing a 14-point gap without your primary goal scorer is, well, it's statistically improbable.
It changes their entire season outlook. It goes from title defense to secure top 4 at all costs.
Absolutely. And that adds its own pressure.
Okay, let's pivot from the top of the table to the sidelines. Because if the players are feeling the pressure, the managers must be absolutely terrified for their jobs.
We call it the managerial merry-go-round,
Mm-hmm.
but this season it's been more like a wood chipper.
The patience from owners has just hit an all-time low. As you said, 6 departures, and we're only just in January. It's ruthless.
Beyond ruthless.
I want to walk through the timeline of one club in particular, just because it encapsulates the madness perfectly. It's a case study in how not to run a football club. Nottingham Forest.
Oh, boy. Where do you even start with Forest?
Let's start on September 9th, 2025. Nuno Espirito Santo is sacked. The reports all said his relationship with the owner, Evangelos Marinakis, had completely broken down.
Which, let's be honest, is not an uncommon story at Forest. Marinakis is a volatile figure, but the replacement strategy, that's where it gets truly wild.
On the very same day he's sacked, they hire Ange Postecoglou.
Now, just pause there for a second. Think about the stylistic whiplash you were inflicting on a group of professional athletes.
It's insane. You go from Nuno, a pragmatic defensive structure, counter-attacking manager,
To Ange Ball, a high-line, relentless, almost kamikaze attacking risk. You were asking the same group of players to completely rewire their footballing brains overnight.
it's like asking a classical orchestra to suddenly start playing heavy metal without a single rehearsal.
That's a perfect analogy. And how did that little experiment go?
Well, on October 18th, just 39 days later, Ange is sacked. 39 days.
It's hard to overstate how short a time that is in football. He managed 8 matches. He didn't win a single one.
And the final straw was being sacked, reportedly, 20 minutes after a 3-0 home loss to Chelsea.
20 minutes. They didn't even let him get showered and changed.
I have condiments in my refrigerator that are older than Ange Postecoglou's tenure at Nottingham Forest. 39 days doesn't even give you time to unpack your boxes in your new office.
It speaks to a fundamental misunderstanding of how football actually works, right from the very top at the ownership level. You cannot implement a complex, high-risk system like Postecoglou's in 4 weeks. It takes months of drilling on the training ground.
So by firing him after 39 days, what have you achieved? You've essentially just wasted 6 weeks of your season, confused your players, and destroyed their confidence.
And then, to top it all off, who do they bring in?
Sean Dyche.
So you go defensive with Nuno, to hyper-attacking with Ange, and then slam the brakes on and go back to defensive pragmatic with Dyche.
That is how you get relegated. The players must have no idea if they're coming or going.
And it shows in the table. They're currently sitting 17th, just hovering above the drop zone. And frankly, given that chaos, it's a miracle they aren't even lower.
But it wasn't just Forest having a meltdown. West Ham sacked Graham Potter in late September.
He'd only won 1 in 5 games. The pressure was on early.
And who did they replace him with? Nuno Espirito Santo.
The man who had just been fired by Nottingham Forest. The carousel is literal. The same handful of names just circulating to different dugouts. It's bizarre.
And then you look at Wolves. Vitor Pereira sacked back in November while they were rock bottom. They bring in Rob Edwards from Luton.
But look at the table now. They're still 20th with only 6 points.
6 points from 20 games that's historically bad. That's Derby County territory.
It's statistical relegation. You need roughly a point a game, about 38 to 40 points, to survive. They are miles off that pace. It looks like the championship is a certainty for them.
And just to cap off the managerial carnage, on New Year's Day 2026, Chelsea decide to join the party. Enzo Maresca leaves by mutual consent.
And you have to note the context here. Chelsea were 5th in the league. They were in a European spot.
And yet he's gone. It just reinforces this idea that at Stamford Bridge, the league table is almost secondary to the internal politics and power struggles. Job security is completely non-existent.
They've got Caleb McFarlane as an interim now, but the instability there is just chronic. It's been that way for years.
Which brings us, I think, to the biggest managerial story of the month. The situation at Manchester United.
Ruben Amorim,
The man who was supposed to be the savior. The next big thing in European coaching, sacked on January 5th, 2026.
lasted less than 14 months. Another long-term project cut short before it could ever really take root.
So let's get into the why of it all. The official statements from the club mention a dispute with the recruitment department.
Which is usually club speak for a major power struggle behind the scenes.
But you can't ignore the start to the season they had.
No, you absolutely can't gloss over that. It was statistically their worst start to a Premier League season in 33 years.
They had 4 points from their first 4 games. They lost to Arsenal. They got battered 3-0 by City at home, as we mentioned earlier. The pressure cooker was whistling from the first week of August.
It was a disaster of a start.
But, and this is the twist in the story, isn't it? By the time he was actually sacked on January 5th, they had clawed their way back up to 6th in the table.
That's the part that doesn't add up if it's purely about results.
Right. They were on 31 points. They were actually unbeaten in late December and early January. They got a win against Newcastle, draws with Wolves and Leeds. The ship seemed to be stabilizing, at least a little bit.
And that's what validates the dispute with recruitment theory for me. If it was only about results, you sack him in September when they are 15th and looking lost.
Not when he's just climbed back into the European places.
Exactly. Sacking him when he's 6th suggests a fundamental disagreement on the future direction of the club. It tells me that the results on the pitch had become almost irrelevant to the board. They wanted him out for other reasons.
A power play. And now they've turned to a club legend, Darren Fletcher, as the interim manager.
He's the first Scottish manager at Old Trafford since David Moyes back in 2014. No pressure there, Darren.
Not at all. He's a club man through and through, but managing this particular squad with this level of scrutiny, it's a different beast entirely.
It's a poison chalice.
I want to dig deeper into this disagreement on direction because we found a really active and insightful discussion on the Hair Manchester United subreddit that frames this whole thing perfectly.
It's the classic debate, isn't it? The system versus the commercial club.
This is the eternal struggle for United post-Ferguson. The fans in that thread were basically arguing that Manchester United buys players to sell shirts and generate social media engagement, not to win football matches.
And that the managers from Moyes to Mourinho to Arim are just the fall guys for a completely broken structure above them.
So let's look at the money and the players to see if that argument holds up. They spent huge in the summer.
Huge. Matthias Cunha signed for $62.5 million, Benjamin Chico for $74 million, Brian Bimo for $65 million.
You're talking about over $200 million on just 3 attacking players.
So let's look at the return on that massive investment. Infamo has actually been a qualified success, I'd say. He's their top scorer with 7 goals across all competitions. He's a Premier League proven player who adapted pretty well.
But Chico, £74 million for a striker who has scored 2 goals in 11 appearances.
That is a tough pill to swallow for the fans and for the board.
And Cunha has 4 goals in 16 league apps. It's not terrible, but for over £60 million, you are expecting a genuine game changer.
You're expecting someone to grab the team by the scruff of the neck, and that just hasn't happened.
So is that on Chico and Cunha? Or is it what the fans call the United graveyard effect? Because the flip side of this argument is the Exodus, or the bomb squad, as it was nicknamed.
All the big names they shipped out on loan or sold.
Exactly. Marcus Rashford is now at Barcelona. Rasmus Højlund is at Napoli. Jadon Sancho is playing for Aston Villa. Antony is over at Real Betis.
And there is this pervasive myth among United fans, and to be fair, football fans in general, that players leave Manchester United and immediately turn into prime Zidane.
Right. We saw it with Lukaku when he went to Inter Milan a few years back. The narrative immediately becomes United held them back, the club is toxic.
But the nuance in that Reddit thread was really interesting, and I think it's important to be objective here. Is Højlund actually tearing it up and setting the world on fire at Napoli?
Well, the source notes he scored 3 goals in 5 games. That's a good return.
It's a good return, certainly better than his ratio at United.
Yeah.
But is it world beater status? Or is it just that Serie A is maybe a slightly slower league, which allows a physical striker like him more time and space? It's not a simple answer.
There was one comment in that thread that really stuck with me. A user wrote, "Every other player that leaves United to be a success. It's because they fit proper systems at their new clubs, and we don't have that."
That, for me, is the absolute crux of the entire issue. That's it in a nutshell.
Aston Villa buys a player specifically to fit Unai Emery's system. Brighton buys players to fit a very specific data profile.
And Manchester United seems to buy players who are famous or who have a big price tag, and then they turn to the manager and just say, here you go, make this work.
It's the Galacticos model of recruitment, but without the Galactico results to back it up.
Exactly. And that puts poor Darren Fletcher in an absolutely impossible position now. He's inherited a squad of expensive individuals who don't necessarily fit together, a fan base that is at war with the ownership, and a recruitment department that just won a major power struggle against the previous manager. Good luck with that.
Speaking of things that infuriate fans and cause endless arguments, let's talk about the 3 letters that define modern football frustration.
VAR.
The technology we all love to hate. It wouldn't be a deep dive into a chaotic season without it.
You can't avoid it.
We managed to pull some really interesting data from Squawka on this. They've put together what they're calling a table without VAR errors.
I've seen this. Basically, they've analyzed every single major incorrect, subjective decision penalties, red cards, offside interferences, and they've calculated what the points totals would look like if the referees had gotten everything right first time.
And if you're a Liverpool or a Manchester United fan listening to this, this is the data that is going to validate all of your paranoia.
Because according to Squawka's data, both of those clubs have a net score of -3 errors against them. They have been, objectively, the most unlucky teams in the league this season.
So when you hear their fans complaining that the refs are against us, the data is actually nodding along in agreement.
For this season, yes. The numbers show they have dropped significant points, specifically due to erroneous calls that went against them.
And on the flip side, who's been lucky?
Well, Chelsea have a +2 benefit from errors going in their favor. And at the top of the lucky list, Aston Villa with +3.
Sevilla's incredible run to second place in the table, maybe getting a little bit of help from the officials along the way.
Look, it doesn't take away from Emery's tactical brilliance. You have to be in the position to benefit from that luck in the first place. But margins are so thin in this league. An extra 3 points from officiating errors is massive.
That could easily be the difference between getting into the Champions League and finishing in the Europa League.
Or even more.
There have been some just truly bizarre incidents that have contributed to this data. I want to talk about game week 13, Manchester United versus Crystal Palace, the Jean-Philippe Mateta penalty.
Oh, this was a rules nerd's dream and a Manchester United fan's absolute nightmare.
So Mateta steps up to take the penalty.
And as he strikes it, he slips, and the ball cannons off his standing foot before it goes into the net. An accidental double touch.
Now, for my entire life watching football, the rule has been clear. That's an illegal touch. The goal is disallowed. It's an indirect free kick to the defending team.
That was the rule. But the goal stood.
Well, it's complicated. The goal was initially disallowed by the on-field referee, but then VAR intervened.
And this is where it gets murky.
Because of a very recent rule interpretation change, apparently stemming from a similar incident with Julian Alvarez in the Champions League, the officials decided that because the double touch was accidental, Mateta should be allowed to retake the penalty.
Wait. He got a do-over?
Hmm.
Because he messed up the first one.
That is essentially what happened, yes. The interpretation was that he didn't gain a deliberate advantage from the slip, so the punishment should be less harsh. So Mateta stepped up, took the retake, and scored.
You can just imagine the absolute meltdown at Old Trafford. They felt they were robbed of an indirect free kick and were instead punished with a goal.
It sounds like the authorities are just making the rules up as they go along.
It certainly feels that way to the match-going fan, doesn't it? It just adds to that overall sense of chaos and unfairness that we talked about at the very start.
And what about the big new tech for this season, the semi-automated offside that was supposed to fix everything, remove all the controversy?
It's definitely faster, I'll give it that. We aren't waiting 3 or 4 minutes for some lines to be drawn on a screen anymore. But it has not removed the controversy around subjective offside calls.
You're talking about the interference rule.
Exactly. Look at game week 12, Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool. The Murillo goal.
I remember this one. Liverpool were furious.
As they should have been. Murillo shoots from distance. Dan Ndoye is standing in a clearly offside position, right in the line of sight of Alisson, the Liverpool keeper. The semi-automated tech flags Ndoye as being offside geographically. That part is binary. The computer says, yes, he is in an offside position.
But then it's up to the human referee in the VAR room to decide if he's interfering with play.
Precisely. And in this case, the ref decided that he wasn't blocking Alisson's view enough to disallow the goal. The goal stood.
And Liverpool fans were livid because they'd had a very similar goal disallowed for them earlier in the season.
And that's the problem. The technology can measure offside down to the millimeter, but it cannot measure a subjective concept like interference. That is still just a human opinion, and humans are inconsistent.
Consistency. That's all anyone wants from the officials. Although, speaking of a lack of composure, we have to touch on the red card in the Everton versus Manchester United game. Game week 12, Idrissa Gueye.
This was pure comedy. Or maybe a tragedy, depending on your perspective.
He was sent off for violent conduct against his own teammate.
Against Michael Keane, yeah. Gueye misplaced a pass. Keane had to go at him for it, and Gueye just turned around and slapped him in the face, right in front of the referee.
The ref had no choice. Violent conduct is violent conduct. It doesn't matter if you hit an opponent or your own teammate.
It just reminds me of that famous Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer fight for Newcastle all those years ago.
Yeah.
It just sums up the insane tension levels this season. Teams are under so much pressure that they're literally fighting themselves on the pitch.
When you see teammates slapping each other, you know the pressure is getting to a dangerous level.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's look ahead. The January transfer window is wide open right now. Teams are desperate to fix their problems. What are we hearing on the grapevine?
Well, Manchester United are being heavily linked with the Brighton midfielder Carlos Baleba. The fans are demanding a busy window to try and support Darren Fletcher, hoping a new signing or two can spark a run for the top 4.
But there's always the specter of the financial sustainability rules FSR lurking in the background, isn't there?
Always. As we said, they spent nearly $200 million in the summer. Can they legally spend much more without breaching the rules? That's the big question.
That's the reality check for a lot of clubs. You can't just throw money at the problem anymore without risking a points deduction. And Manchester United really cannot afford a points deduction right now.
That would be catastrophic for them.
I want to go back to Liverpool squad for a second, because we found a really insightful analysis from a football tactics blog called AFM Oldtimer. It analyzed Liverpool's transition from Klopp to Slot last year, and it highlighted a homegrown issue that I think explains their struggles more than people realize.
This is a crucial detail that often gets overlooked in the mainstream media, the squad registration rules.
So in the summer of 2025, Liverpool lost two massive homegrown players from their squad, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Karim Kelleher.
Trent finally made that move to Real Madrid that had been rumored for years, and Kelleher went to Brentford to finally be a #1 keeper.
And that created a massive headache for their squad registration. You need to have a certain number of homegrown players in your 25-man Premier League squad.
And losing two key ones like that forces your hand in the transfer market.
So how did they replace Trent? I mean, you can't really replace a generational, one-of-a-kind talent like that.
You can't replace them like for like. So they went in a completely different direction. They triggered the release clause for Bayer Leverkusen's Jeremy Frimpong.
Now, Frimpong is a fantastic player. I loved watching him in the Bundesliga, but he is the tactical polar opposite of Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Completely. Trent is a quarterback playing at right back.
Yeah.
He stands deep. He sprays incredible passes all over the pitch. He dictates the tempo of the game from that position.
Whereas Frimpong is just pure, chaotic energy. He's a dribbler. He'll carry the ball 40 yards up the pitch at lightning speed.
And the analysis pointed this out perfectly. Frimpong's progressive passing numbers are actually quite low for a top fullback, but his dribbling stats and his assist creation from ball carries are absolutely elite.
So Arne Slot has had to fundamentally change the way Liverpool builds their attacks from the back.
Precisely. You lose your primary playmaker on the right side of the pitch, and now you've lost your primary target man, Isak, up top. That is the entire spine of your attack, either gone or completely changed.
It explains so much about why they look disjointed this season. They're trying to learn a whole new attacking language halfway through a conversation.
And that's incredibly difficult to do at this level. The blog also mentioned that they had heavy interest in Florian Wirtz, also from Leverkusen.
That's a number 10 role.
It just shows the ambition and the direction Slot is trying to take them, shifting from Klopp's heavy metal football to a more technical possession-based passing style. Wirtz would have been the centerpiece of that.
And you contrast that with United. Liverpool identifies a specific tactical problem. We need a ball-carrying, dribbling outlet at right back. And they go and buy Frimpong. United seems to ask, who is on the cover of the latest FIFA game?
It goes back to what Louis van Gaal said all those years ago. Manchester United is a commercial club, not a football club. When you compare the recruitment strategies, spending huge on famous individuals versus spending smartly on system players, it's very hard to argue that he was wrong.
So let's try to wrap our heads around this and summarize this mid-season madness.
At the top of the table, Arsenal are the clear favorites now. They have the points on the board, they have the best defense, and most importantly, they have stability. City are leaking goals, and Liverpool are broken by injuries.
And what about the relegation battle down at the bottom?
Wolves look completely finished on just 6 points. It would take the greatest escape in Premier League history for them to survive. And Burnley, on 12 points, aren't looking much better.
And the whole Big Six concept feels totally fractured, doesn't it? Chelsea is rebooting again, United is restarting again, Spurs are, well, they're being Spurs.
It's created a power vacuum at the top of the league, and Mikel Arteta's Arsenal has stepped right into it with both feet.
I want to leave our listener with a final thought to chew on. We've talked about Ange Postecoglou lasting just 39 days. We've talked about Ruben Amorim, a highly rated young coach lasting less than 14 months. Are we seeing the death of the project manager?
It's a valid and slightly terrifying fear, I think.
Yeah.
We all love to talk about trusting the process. Look at Arteta himself. It took him years to get Arsenal to this point. But the data suggests that owners are panic-firing managers faster than ever before.
If you don't come in and win 5 of your first 6 games, you might not get a 7th.
Are we entering an era of the disposable manager, where you just hire a tactician for 6 months to plug a specific hole, you fire him at the end of the season, and you just get the next mercenary in?
It certainly feels like the long-term dynasty, the Ferguson or Wenger model, might be dead and buried.
I think it might be.
Well, on that cheerful note, If you're sitting there fuming about your team's results this past weekend, go and find that VAR table on Squawka.
You might actually be doing better than you think you are.
Or maybe that's just the lie we all tell ourselves to get to sleep at night.
It's probably the latter.
That's it for this deep dive into the 25-26 mid-season madness. Thanks for listening, and remember to check your sources.
Because the headlines only ever tell you half the story. Stay curious.